Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending from where you are tuning in today. You are welcome. You are blessed. Welcome to another Power Pack edition with Mamlaka Brokers Network. Today, are joining with me five great leaders, great ambassador from around the world. Ambassador David Burrows, Ambassador Timothy Blair, Ambassador Ben Bongen, Ambassador David Benz, and Ambassador, sorry, Ambassador Stacy Lemay. They are going to be talking today on this topic, the art of the slab, redefining the culture. We know without a doubt that today our world is suffering from destructiveness, for disintegration, for cultural disintegration, and the organizations that are set are not responding. And as a result, we have the social unrest, we have a level of disorder and the suffering and oppression of people, a level of high violence and domestic crime. The attack of Smith reinforced the worst and most enduring stereotype about Black men. That is the image of the male violent, impulsive, violent, and out of control. What is worse is that they were not these two Black from the hood that reinforced this stereotype, but Smith and Rock were actually a great, successful, visible men around in the globe. This violence is almost how our society is suffering from. And the fact is that the media is condone it and even glorify in it. As a result, we see a lot of things going on around the world today. 2 weeks ago, we witnessed also in Nigeria a domestic violence, a singer, gospel singer who were killed because of the husband slap. Our world is in need of cultural redefinition, a solution to those aren't far off, which are the extent of the care. How can we define it and how we really want to bring change and cultural change in our world today? So today, sit back, relax, and as you're going to hear from yourself, the care from our panelists from all around the world, two are from the beautiful island of the Bahamas, the place where God lives, and three are right here, even here in America. Now, let me give you a little bit of synopsis of what we're going to have today. This boiling point is going to be a counter out of that which is facing the world today. So get your notepad ready and take as much notes as you can. You could also put your question in the comment box, or maybe just your comment, and therefore we could highlight it and we could find out who is going to be fit better to answer that question for you today. So allow me now to give the floor to our panelists to self-introduce themselves to you. Ambassador David Burrows, the floor is yours, and please go.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be with you. By way of introduction, I'm Dr. Dave Burrows of Bahamas Faith Ministries here in the Bahamas. I'm the senior pastor of the ministry that was founded by Dr. Miles Monroe. Prior to that, I was a youth ministry leader, expert, businessman, CEO, owner of several companies, both a business and spiritual consultant in many, many areas of the world. And today, continue as the senior pastor of Bahamas Faith Ministries and also the CEO and president of Megabyte Computers, One Rib Publications, and the Youth and Family Center. In looking at this topic that we have today of what recently occurred, I think we have to go back and look at the words of Jesus. Jesus gave us some very, very simple principles to live by. And if we observe these principles, we are guaranteed success. The world that we live in today is ignoring both spiritual and natural laws and then expecting success. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, we have a problem particularly in the Black culture of America, and it's being exported around the world. So we have a culture of violence, a culture of negativity, and that culture permeates the country and the community and the Black community, and it affects the behavior of our men. Now, I'm not saying that Will Smith was a part of that culture, but I think addressing the culture is the solution, not just addressing the incident. Um, when it comes to Will Smith, I think one of the things that happened in that incident is that you had a lapse in judgment. So you had a situation where someone who does not have a history of violence, is was not considered a gangster rapper, was considered kind of a family man to some extent, and so he was not the poster child or the one that you would expect to do something like that. So he had a lapse in judgment, but his lapse in judgment brought focus to what's happening in the culture and what needs to be done in order for us to improve. In this case, I think a lot of persons have made it currently bigger than it should be. It was a terrible incident. He should be punished. But by the same token, we can't end forgiveness. We can't close the door on people being able to right their wrongs and have a second chance. And I think people have been harsh on him, and justifiably so. But I think at some point in time, you need to say, okay, you made a stupid decision. It was terrible. It affected people negatively. It was a bad image. But we are going to allow you to repair what you've done. What people are seeming to do now is not wanting to give him the opportunity to repair his image. You know, it's almost like we don't want to hear from him. We don't want to see him. They want to cancel all his shows. And that's not a kingdom principles, a kingdom principle. The Bible says, forgive and you shall be forgiven. It says, you know, we have to be careful about judging people because we don't know what can happen to us. All of us can have a lapse in judgment. I am here today because I benefited from, you know, my lapse and my opportunity to repair my lapse in judgment. But moving beyond that incident, let's talk about the culture. One of the problems that we have today in the culture among Black men is that is not being addressed, is that we have a culture of negativity, a culture of violence, a culture of murder, and it's being glorified and promoted, and very few people are speaking out about it. Let me give you an example. We have, in the last few years, we may have had somewhere between 50 or more rappers who were killed. So every month, a rapper is killed somewhere. And some people are saying, well, why is this happening? It's happening because there's some things that have been established in the culture that the culture itself is not addressing. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement was very important in bringing to the forefront what was happening negatively among Black people being perpetrated by a system of racism and injustice and so on. But the problem is that even though that has been a necessary focus, the other element of it that's not being addressed is what are Black people going to do about the negative that's happening in the culture that goes beyond what white people are doing. So white people, white policemen, you may have had a few white policemen who have shot Black persons or mistreated Black persons. But then every day, just about every day now, there's a report somewhere of Black young men driving up on an area, on a party or some event, and indiscriminately shooting their peers with an AK-47. And you have multiple people dying, many go into jail. We have to address the culture. We have to change the narrative. We have to speak out about it, but not only speak out about it, we have to plan for change. Let me give you an example. I think one of the things that needs to happen among celebrities, among persons of means in the community, is to come up with strategic plans to address the violence, but also to provide opportunity. One of the things that I found out that happened with the Black Lives Matter movement is that it caused a lot of corporate America to forcibly make room for Black young men in particular and Black women to have opportunities in the corporate world and the business world and so on. But if we don't prepare our young men and women to assume these opportunities, then what happens is it's a wasted, it's a situation of wasted opportunity. You know what it is when the government, the leaders of America are saying, we want Black people in the boardroom. We want Black people in certain colleges. We want Black people in certain institutions. And then the people who are supposed to occupy those positions, they're on drugs, they shooting one another, they're killing one another, they're promoting violence, and no one is actively addressing it. So I think there has to be a strategic plan, and the plan has to involve the kingdom and kingdom citizens. So we have to lead the way. We have to put plans in place. What is happening in America is not just happening in America, it's also happening in the Bahamas. And one of the things that I was able to do recently, I was appointed to a crime commission. And what I decided to do is to create documentation that would help people who want to contribute to making the culture better. So I told the commission, I said, okay, we can talk about all of these things, but what we need to do is we need to have some concrete action. So I'm putting together a manual, and it's called the Street Ministry Manual. And what it's designed to do is to teach people who want to impact young men from the street, young men from gangs, to teach them the principles that I use in causing many young men's lives to be turned around. In our ministry, we have a sound engineer who was a former gang leader. We have another former gang member who is a husband, a father, a businessman, a family man, owns a broadcasting company, has television and radio programs around the world. One of our, the pastor of our Freeport and our Orlando campus came from the streets. So what that tells us is that the principles of the kingdom are effective in changing the culture and taking young men who have been otherwise written off, who there have been low expectations for, and seeing them change. I'm a product of kingdom change, and that's one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent of it. When I look at the results that are available, and I look at what people present to the table, the only group that I've seen have significant, powerful result in changing cultures has been as a result of implementing kingdom principles. So I believe we have to not only understand the culture and address the issues, but we have to actually begin implementing strategy, begin producing material. If you don't, I thought about it and I said, okay, what if I explained to everybody what's going on, and I do my program, but we don't have other people who are in the fight. We have to prepare other people to be in the fight, because I can only do so much. My team can only do so much. So we have to equip a number of persons to be in a position to create intervention and to develop strategies and programs that would take our young people from where they are now to where they need to be. And so I believe that that is the key to changing the culture. We know from being kingdom citizens and seeing how the kingdom has impacted our lives personally, the principles that Jesus spoke about, how they work. You know, it's impossible to harm somebody if you obey the simple principle that says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's impossible to have a negative culture if you understand that you're supposed to forgive even your enemies. If we follow the principles of the kingdom of God, we will have success. We have to make sure that we implement it into the culture wherever we live. Thank you very much.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much, Dr. Dave, for that adding already in the opening of this topic, the art of the slap, redefining culture. So let's please play that clip. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a night. Everybody, no one's wearing a mask, just breathing raw dog tonight. Wow! Giselle, Macbeth, loved it. I love the part where it said, King Lear don't got nothing on me. Y'all got to see it. It's really good. You know who's got the hardest job tonight? Javier Bardem and his wife are both nominated. Now, if she loses, he can't win. He is praying that Will Smith wins. Like, please, Lord. Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Uh-oh, Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane jump.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
I'm going to, okay? Okay. That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay. Okay.
That was the greatest night in the history of television. That internet breaking Oscar moment went viral all around the globe. The violence, just as Dr. Dave was mentioning right now, that people could not implement that type of culture if they are not aware of. So for us, kingdom citizens, we are here to reinforce change. Before I give the floor to Ambassador Stacy LeMay, I just wanted to have something here. It challenged many people, personal position. So I quote, what would I have done? Question. As well as the societal value and expectation. What do you think? Ambassador Stacy LeMay, please come in as you present yourself and then.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ambassador Veronique. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It is certainly a riveting discussion topic, and I'm looking forward to the full session here of this conversation. I am Dr. Stacy LeMay. I'm the senior pastor and senior leader and apostle here at Champion Kingdom Center. We're right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we call it the Queen City made for kings. I've been married to my lovely lady, Dr. Danae LeMay, for a number of 31 years. We have 4 beautiful children that love God, that help us and support us in the work that we do internationally. I am from Newark, New Jersey, where I went to school and got a scholarship to Florida A&M University and studied in business, graduated there with my business degree at Florida A&M University, and became a serial entrepreneur before going into full-time ministry, and of course still doing business as well, businesses in the kingdom, and infiltrating the systems in various aspects. Glad to be here, certainly an honor. Well, when I first saw this, there's two different narratives that are being circulated, and now you, as Dr. Dave mentioned, that it's a very pretty big deal being made of this incident, and it has produced two different narratives. One narrative is that that Will Smith was playing the role, almost became too caught up in the role that he played as Richard Williams, and it overtook him at the moment. His emotions got the best of him, and he responded in a defensive way of his wife, Jada. And then there's another narrative or another perception that it was all scripted from the beginning, and that it was Hollywood at its finest. In fact, some would say that it was literally slapstick comedy, but was slapstick behavior, which was utilized to bring attention and audience to a declining views for the awards ceremony. Slapstick comedy is what we know as farcical physical comedy, when a physical action is exaggerated by sound, and they take two pieces of wood in the backstage called a pataccio, and they slap the sticks together. And that's what slapstick came from. We have examples in our generation. We used to watch Abbott and Costello, the Little Rascals, Laurel and Hardy, etc. But it's farcical physical comedy or farcical physical behavior to exaggerate something that has occurred on the screen before people's eyes. You know, one of the questions, several different questions to wonder if this was actually organic, if this was genuine, if this was played to a script. But few of the questions that were asked concerning is it real? Was it real? Was it organic? Is, for one, if this was organic and this was not scripted, where were the security guards in one of the highest ceremonies of all the land? And why didn't they respond when something like that? That was actually a crime behavior that occurred right before everyone's eyes. If this was not scripted, where were the security guards? Why wasn't Will Smith escorted out of the venue after this aggression? And another question is, why was he allowed to receive an Oscar after attacking the host of the event? I mean, these are very good questions and have very great validity to make us wonder if this was scripted or if this was organic. And then Chris Rock goes on to literally say directly after the slap, not in a response or not in anger, but almost as if it was anticipated. And he responded with this, which made people wonder, is this the actual goal? Which is what we're seeing now. Even here's a month plus later, and it's almost talked about everywhere, every day, where Chris Rock stated after the slap, that was the greatest night in television history. Was that the goal? That's a very good question, very good point, and a very good possibility that this was very scripted, and we are all being sucked into it and as they blow it out of proportion and continue to draw attention to all of the other awards that took place after that event, which increased the ratings, which have been dropping for years. The last 2 years, the worst ratings they've ever had in the history of the award. Will Smith actually laughed at the G.I. Joe joke until Jada gave him what some are calling the Jada Bell eye. If it was not scripted, then Chris Rock was the most disrespected and unprotected host to ever host the show. And then I'll conclude this portion with this. If this was not scripted again, then this was all about the vanity of a woman's hair. because Regina, and then when it opened up, I went back and watched the whole thing there to see what exactly happened, see what people were saying and doing, what was the environment like, what kind of led up to this. Is this a play on our society, as they have been doing quite a few other things over the last couple of years? But Regina Hall opened up joking about the Smiths' open marriage. And she laughed, saying, I know y'all are open, but I want y'all to come up together. In other words, you can joke about my marriage, but don't joke about my hair. Pretty vain that this would be all about a woman's hair, when the total disrespect and public embarrassment that has recently taken place concerning these supposedly two Black leaders in today's society, one of the highest levels of Black leadership, that it would literally come down to being about the vanity of a woman's hair. We used to have leaders in our community, and leaders, just at least television leaders, that were presented to our communities, like Cliff and Claire Huxtable, James and Florida Evans, giving us the example of the highs and the lows, but still staying together as a family and working things out together, honoring and respecting each other. But I think it's an embarrassing moment right now that at the highest level of the Black community, we have now this, the Jay-Z's, the Beyoncé's, the Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. It's a sad example of the Black community, and the church needs to make the difference in this situation by providing whole and healthy families, whole and healthy marriages. And as Dr. Dave mentioned earlier, the only way you can get that resolve and that result is to return to kingdom principles.
Awesome.
With that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ambassador Stacy Leme, for that adding, and then for your powerful comment and view on that video, and really how you say it. So that would lead me actually now, if it was scriptured, or it was real, or it was organic, we're going to find out. So I'm going to ask an ethical question, which Smith himself said, violence in all its form is poisonous and destructive. But it is what, if anything, was wrong with Will Smith's slap, Dr. Bongen? You've been knowing exactly almost what is going on in Black Hollywood. Can you please add into that one? The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a pleasure to join you today. And I'm Ben Bongang. I teach journalism and political science at Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia. Before that, I was for several years a radio journalist in Cameroon and a television producer. And later on, I was a Hubert Humphrey Fellow at Boston University before coming down to Savannah, where I've been teaching for the last 20 plus years. If we look at, if I address specifically the question you ask about the slap, I would start by framing this in the context of the history or of the evolution of the Black character in Hollywood. For those who've seen an old movie that was made in 1915, The Birth of a Nation, Blacks were caricatures, as that period saw Blacks as persons to be laughed at because they were not as human as others. So to see in 2022, the long journey that Blacks have made to have a night where the host in Hollywood is a Black, the person who eventually wins the Oscar is a Black, and to have a situation like that is almost, even if you talk of scripting things, that nobody would have imagined that Blacks would ever be holding these positions in Hollywood and create such an embarrassment for the world and for us to be talking about. I would also want to address the other issue of the role of celebrities in society. Celebrities, we in the society tend to see celebrities as demigods, these superhuman people who create the path for us to emulate. And when a celebrity performs or does something as scandalous, as it were, it becomes, the rest of humanity looks at it askance and surprise. So we see, as a society, we are also responsible for this, because we look up to celebrities as those who can do probably no wrong until they do. So our celebrities, therefore, the role models that we have to emulate. So those are questions we need to address. And also the idea of our interest in the private lives of celebrities. Because we look up to them, their private lives become the object of public discussion. So we look at the celebrity as this role model, and we are talking about it today because what happened on Oscar night challenged all these assumptions of the celebrity in society. And we will talk some more, and I will give some examples about how this stands out. Whether scripted or not, it still stands out as something that will be written about for long. You know, there was a time not too long ago, the Black Hollywood was complaining about Hollywood so white. And when Hollywood turned slightly black, we ended up with something like this, which some people haven't had the courage to actually call it what it was. Because when they do, those who don't want to talk about it are the ones who are afraid to say, well, if I say what I think about it, it's going to be racist. But maybe as we talk, we'll talk about the racist aspect to it. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to more on the discussion on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Ben Bongen. Thank you for that idea that we actually are responsible because we see celebrity as demigod, and then when people do not actually understand or maybe forget their history, they are obviously confused to repeat it. Thank you very much. Now we're gonna play a short, not a short clip on Black Lives Matter. Ambassador David Burrows talk about that one. We're gonna play that one, and after we play that one, there is going to be a quote from Denzel Washington that also happened just after this event. I think he was having an interview with Teddy Jess, and please play first the short clip about the Black Lives Matters.
There's a lot of misconceptions about Black Lives Matter. That's because the media sucks. I'm not an expert, but I am a Black guy, and we're here at Viceland to clear all the noise. Peep this. When it comes to Black on Black crime, the media sensationalizes gang violence, drive-by shootings, drugs, but they don't cover grandmothers having candlelight vigils against murders. That's because that doesn't make any money. In 2011, a Pittsburgh study linked 86% of stories with Black males to crime, and only 2.7% of stories were about education, leadership, or community. Study after study shows that the media is such a powerful tool that it can shape your perspective. In some ways, it diminishes Black life and gives the excuse for the type of violence that are enacted in our communities on a day-to-day basis. So there you have it. I can't explain almost 500 years of Black oppression in such a short-ass video. And it's not gonna stop all the crazy things people are gonna say about me below. But at least now you're being informed racist.
I love that. I love that. Thank you very much for that clip. Now, can you please play that quote or just highlight that quote of Denzel Washington so that we could read before I give the floor to Dr. David Benz? Denzel Washington say, at your highest moment, be careful. That's when the devil comes for you. It seems to me like he was kind of shifting the blame here to kind of giving a result or maybe acknowledge that what Will Smith have done. I don't know. What's your thought, Ambassador David Banks? Thank you.
It's truly a pleasure to be on this platform. Thank you, Ambassador Lady Veronique, for allowing me to share this situation. And I thought briefly upon it. And, you know, as I was meditating on this, I thought of the word slap, S-L-A-P. And when I spent time thinking about it, I accessed the head country first. I'm sorry, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. David Banks, the pastor overseer of the Empowerment Embassy here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Also, I'm the president of North Success Strategy Group, where I do leadership training across the world. Also, I'm a government official here in the city. I head up the Director of Leadership and Professional Development Training. So as I look at this, I look at the word slap, S-L-A-P, and I really believe that it is truly signs of leaving Almighty God's presence. I'll say that again, slap, signs of leaving Almighty God's presence. When I thought about this situation, I always wanted to go back and find out, where did the first official slap comes from? And I want you to go back to Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4, verse 16 says, "Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden." And look at verse 23. Genesis chapter 4, verse 23 says, "Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, you wives of Lamech. Listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me." The first slap happened in Genesis chapter 4, verse 23, where Cain was in the land of Nod, where he built a city outside of the presence of the Lord. So as we look at this and we see this situation that happened at the Oscars, it is just a huge confirmation that we're still thinking that we can live outside of God's presence. And I think that is why it's so crucial that we're having this conversation, because if we don't understand that we really need to have strategies, as Dr. Dave Barrows said, to really get to the point of redefining, because I think we've come to conform to culture rather than understand that we were designed to define the culture. You know, Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world." But anytime you see "do not conform," is more than likely already letting you know we've already conformed. And what is the pattern of this world? This pattern of this world is where we deal with three things: fear, facts, and feelings. And this is what this culture has really lived by. They live by Will Smith. He felt like he could just go and slap Chris Rock. Based on how he felt, he did what he felt. He had a fear that if I don't protect my wife, it's not going to go well when we leave the Oscars tonight. So we live in a society where it has truly been conformed to those three entities: fear, facts, and feelings. And I think it's so important as we continue this discussion to really share some strategies of how can we really start as a seed, as yeast, to infiltrate this culture with kingdom principles, to really get to the point where we truly see a major change. So I'll come later and share some strategies that I have developed. Thank you.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you very much for that, adding Ambassador David Benz. And I like how you put slap signs of living Almighty God presence. That of itself already answer the question, and that we really have to go back into redefining our culture, not only conform into it. Wow. We always have to go back to the Genesis of the Bible, which is Genesis chapter 4:23. Great, thank you. Before I continue, I would like to highlight just quickly people who are watching already live today with us. Welcome, Dr. Denise Lemay, all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, the beautiful wife of Dr. Stacy. Welcome, Purity. Welcome, Purity. Lauren. Welcome, Gabriela, all the way from Cameroon. Welcome, beautiful. Bethany, I think it's Bethany. Welcome, all the way. I think those are all the way from Charlotte and Cameroon. She is our power from Cameroon there. That's our local studio right there in Yaoundé. Thank you very much for all. I don't know, maybe I may have missed some of the people who are commenting, but I will come back to you later on. Before we continue on this is I'm telling you, is just so it's getting better and better, as we will see. I would like to highlight another code before I give a floor. Before I even give a floor to Ambassador Timothy Bay, I would like to give the floor back to Dr. Dave Burrows. So please highlight that code, the second code of Denzel Washington. Another one that is of Denzel Washington, he said, on Will Smith's lab to an interview with T.G. Jakes, well, there is a saying with that go, when the devil ignores you, then you know you are doing something wrong. The devil goes and says, oh no, leave him alone. He's my favorite. When I read that quote and when I listened to that show with K.G. Jakes and with Denzel Washington, I was kind of, what are they talking about? This is not the thing that we're supposed to be talking. This is the thing that we're supposed to be discussing. Find out how are we going to try to redefine the culture that is shaping our world today, instead of trying to speak again about the same old. Dr. Dave, please come back again and build upon what you already said, how we could implement that one. Are you still there?
Yes. Yeah, very good point and very good observation. I would like to go back a little bit. The young man who was talking about what is portrayed in the media, I think that was a very important point. But one of the most important aspects of his point is this question: what does the Black media highlight? You know, asking the white media to correct what's happening in the Black community is going to be challenging. The first thing that we should do within the Black community is highlight what we want. So what we want to see coming from the community, what we want our children to emulate, let that show up in the Black media. It needs to show up in all media, but at least when somebody is viewing Black media, it should highlight the young people who are excelling in education, in art, in character issues. So if we're talking about solutions, you cannot solve a problem by continuing to highlight the negative. Young Black people need role models. When I look at Black media itself, what do I see highlighted? I see highlighted primarily gangsters. I see artists who are negative, artists who are very, anti anything God. And so I think we need to begin to promote positive images if we want to see positive happen in our community. And going back to what Denzel Washington said, it is true. We have to make sure we're careful about what we do and what we say. I think this incident with Will Smith is a reminder that we have to know how to carry ourselves, and we have to be aware that anyone can slip. And so we need to make sure that the Bible says, be careful when you think you stand, lest you fall. So every day, each of us, we have to evaluate ourselves and to make sure that we are standing, because if we are not careful, that's when the devil comes in and disrupts. Now, in the case of Will Smith, I think he is a young man who is, he may be a role model, but he is showing a high level of confusion. He and his family, the whole family seems to be very confused and not understanding the principles that we are talking about today. So I think maybe this incident may help him to go back and look at his life and reevaluate what he believes is important. If he can go back to the principles that we talked about, then I think he can come back stronger than ever before.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Dave Borough, for that adding. Exactly, we need role model. We need role model who are actually kingdom ambassador and kingdom citizen, because our world is falling apart because of lack of real role models. There, as you said, you pointed out perfectly, Will Smith, he needs healing. And even though that Denzel Washington may be that at that point, his role model at the Oscar, I'm pretty sure they don't know the principle of the kingdom, because that would have not been the way they should have displayed it. Again, this is my viewpoint. This is my opinion. So what we have to do, as we discussing, as you say, we don't need to highlight more the problem. We need more Black television to rise. That's why MBN is here for, to try to contrast what is going on in Black Hollywood, what is going on in mainstream media, and bring the kingdom viewpoint of things on the earth. Thank you very much. Before I give the floor to Ambassador Timothy Blake, I'm going to be reading now that the quote of President Obama. Once I read that quote of President Obama, please can you play that clip that actually go well with this, with what President Obama said. President Obama said in the 13th film, released in 2016, let's look at the statistic. The United States is home for 5% of the world population, but 25% of the world prisoners. Think about it. A little country with 5% of the world population having 25% of world prisoners. 1 out of 4 human beings with their hand on bars. Shocker in the world are locked up here in the land of the free. Prison population were in 1972 300,000, and today is plus 2.3 million at the United States. Now, the highest rate of incarceration in the world, and most of them are Black or African American. You're going to see it for yourself. Please, thank you.
1 out of 4 human beings with their hands on bars, shackled, in the world are locked up here in the land of the free.
Khalif Browder was walking home from a party when he was stopped by police.
Then they said, we're going to take you to the precinct, and most likely we're going to let you go home, and then I never went home.
The 13th Amendment to the Constitution makes it unconstitutional for someone to be held as a slave. There are exceptions, including criminals.
The loophole was immediately exploited. What you got after that was a rapid transition to a mythology of black criminality.
Some people got the real problem.
Animals, beasts that needed to be controlled.
You better believe it.
I'm only human.
It became virtually impossible for a politician to run and appear soft on crime.
The kinds of kids that are called super predators.
Millions of dollars will be allocated for prison and jail facilities.
3 strikes and you are out.
It was an enormous burden on the black community, but it also violated a sense of core fairness.
Some people got the real problem.
States were required to keep these prisons filled, even if nobody was committing a crime.
It's so difficult to talk about mass incarceration because it has become heavily monetized.
I'm only human.
The focus is on taking people from prison, putting them in community corrections, parole and probation.
How much progress is it really if now there's a private company making money off the GPS monitor?
We now have more African Americans under criminal supervision than all the slaves back in the 1850s.
I'm only human.
We are the products of the history that our ancestors chose. Products of that set of choices that we have to understand in order to escape from.
I'm only human. After all, blame on me.
About Jachin, I don't know whether you have a chance to watch that film. It's actually like 1 hour and 45 minutes or 1 hour 30 minutes, but it's painting exactly what we are talking today. That film was released in 2016. So, Ambassador Blair, before you come in, what type of culture is this? How do we get there? What needs to be rectified as you introduce yourself? Can you please have your thought on that? You are mute. You are mute.
Okay, there it is. You laugh because I'm poor, black, and funny. Not the same as you. And dice instead of books will do for me to play with when the day is through. I am the fool of the world. Laugh and push me down. Only in song and laughter I rise again. A black clown. That's a part of the Black Clown, an adaptation taken from Langston Hughes back in 1931. And this is what the plight men of color has been facing since the abolition of slavery back in 1865, sorry. And, you know, being a product of a colonial country here in the beautiful islands of the Bahamas, fifth of 7 children, 7 boys, and coming from a home where there was no father in the home, just like Will Smith, his father left when he was 13. And, you know, even though I sit as the president and CEO of my company, Transatlantic Consulting, that helps a leadership-driven company that helps people, individuals, and organizations find their gift. I've spent time in jail. I've been to prison. I've slept on the floor. I know what it's like to be in jail. I know what it's like to no one to come and visit you and nobody to care. I know what it feels like. So I'm not, what the statistics that were presented in that slide just now, it shows what's happening today with Black men. It started a long time ago. It started back when we came, just like James Weldon Johnson says, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt on a day when hope and born was died. But you know what happened with a steady beat? Yet not our weary feet stayed from the place where our fathers sighed. Yes, we've come of a way that with tears have been watered. We've come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Yes, we've treaded a path of people of color. And even a part of my path being the mentee of Dr. Miles Monroe, he baptized me. He didn't baptize me in the Jordan River in Israel. He baptized me in fire. And also Les Brown, who's my mentor, who trained me how to speak and how to change the way how young men think and feel. And you know what? It's interesting to note that back in 2007, what happened? Because the statistics, according to Pew Research, statistics was that there were about 50% of the population in the United States were men of color. And since 2007 up until 2017, about a 25% drop took place. How did that happen? I could tell you, being a man of color in the Americas, I can give you all of it. We all know what happened. What happened in 2008 when the first black man became president of the United States, and Barack Obama, he helped just by his presence alone change the narrative of black men seeing themselves of possibilities and getting away from the possibility blindness. And you know, when we look at reference of the first slap in Hollywood didn't happen with Will Smith. It happened in 1967 with Sidney Poitier, a Bahamian from the Bahamas. Well, he's a Bahamian American, Bahamian. And you know, but he slapped a white man in the film. That was a part of the set, because what was happening was there was a culture shift going on with the civil rights movement. And I wasn't around in 67, so I don't know what it felt like. But I know in 67, lots of changes was happening, cataclysmic changes, even here in the Bahamas, where we had the first majority rule black government here. And so when you see we've evolved from 1865, from post-colonial being released from being enslaved and seen as subhuman and inferior in the Americas, to moving up. And just at the end of James Langston Hughes's poem, he talks about, and now I'm a man. From being the black clown to becoming a man, becoming a manhood. And so even though we've evolved, we're still in that culture, that same mindset, that we're still fitting the mold of the black clown. We're still are moving. We still haven't reached to the place where we're supposed to be. That's why the book that we all know says, you have to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Our men of color especially will not get there unless their mind is renewed. Ambassador Veronique.
Wow. I love it. I love the analogy and how you actually put it perfectly with the rise of President Barack Obama in 2008, how he tried to cause the narrative to be changed in terms of the black people, and then the 25% that has come back again in 2017. And I didn't even know about the other slab with Sidney Poitier. I know Sidney Poitier, he was from the Bahamas. I think he died correctly like a few years ago. So, but I didn't even know about that. So thank you very much for refreshing our memory with that one too. So that is really good. What you say, and that will actually point me now. Thank you very much for that adding, Ambassador Blair. That will actually point me, as we say, you say that even though there's a rise of the black people, but the mind has not changed. The mind is still, they're still trapped in same old. So if we have to go back a little bit, and I'm going to actually now cause the, I don't know whether the moderator could put that one, the Will Smith himself quote from his book, his memoir that was released last year, published last year. This is what he said, Will Smith. Before we go back to the prison thing, this is what Will Smith said. What you have come to understand as Will Smith, the alien in a little MC, the bigger than life movie star, is largely a construction, a careful crafted and honed character designed to protect myself, to hide myself from the world. I don't know which one is hiding from. To hide the Cold War in his memoir, published last year. So you see that even though he is quote-unquote high ranking in Black Hollywood, wealthy, business, they have everything, but the mind is still trapped. His mind is trapped in slavery mentality. His mind is trapped in violence, because that is how they've been painted. That is how the system, American system or Bahamian or whatever, is painting the black man. And we are here today to redefine that painting. So what would you say, Dr. Bungen, on that before we go back to Dr. Dave could chime in, Dr. Stacy could chime in, Dr. David could chime in. What would you say? What exactly motivates Will Smith?
Yes, just before we get into that, I want to just reinforce what Dr. Burrows says about the role of the media, especially the Black media. It is imperative that the media amplifies what is positive. But unfortunately, that's not what the media is there for. The media in a capitalist setting is to make money. And sometimes, ironically, the media that should be amplifying the positive in the Blacks is mimicking the dominant media and in a way reinforcing some of the stereotypes that are historical, the stereotypes that tend to be negative against the Blacks. Back to the question of mindset, it's interesting that Will Smith himself talks of this social construction of himself and maybe others like him. It is indeed something to really think about, because some of these celebrities are instant celebrities. If you sell maybe a record $1 million or several millions, you instantly become somebody people are looking up to. They forget that behind that glorified image constructed because of the media amplification of this person is a real human being who is still struggling with the demons that they have. So you are having these celebrities. I think somebody talked about the number of people killed, of Blacks killed, rappers who are killed. These are the instant celebrities we are talking about. These are people sometimes who are still struggling with educating themselves about what life is. And when they do strike gold, as it were, they become these, they know that the world is looking up to them. Any utterance they make is quoted. It becomes the word of the wise. But as Will Smith himself says, in that construction is still a coward, somebody who is still whimpering there and has not figured out who they are. So it is very important that, especially for the young people today, they are constantly educated by this media to say that the fact that you are on the stage winning an Oscar, that is not a reflection of who you are as a person, that there is more to the human being than the glitter of Hollywood or whatever it is that the capitalist society has crafted you to be.
Wow, exactly. Thank you very much, Dr. Bongan, for adding that. That is really what is happening, and then it is imperative for us to really try to reach out to those people and tell the people that really what you see is always not glitzy. There's something behind. Dr. Dave, I know that you are going to be leaving us soon, so if you could just add something before you leave. Thank you very much. I know you are going to be talking again in another platform. So did you have any adding before you leave?
Yes. One of the things that I wanted to say about the crime issue is that, again, you have to take responsibility for your own issues. The system in America is definitely disadvantageous to Black people. And many more Black people are in prison than should be. And the response from the Black community should be to make sure and educate our young people and to steer them away from what will get them in prison. I'll give you an example of something that's ongoing right now. There's a young rapper, I won't call his name, but he made a statement the other day. He said, "You're not a real man if you never killed anybody." And what we have is we have young Black men who are aspiring to go to prison. So here's this enterprise that is enslaving Black people. And instead of a concerted effort to move young people away from the prison culture, the prison culture, which is combined with the hip hop culture and the gang culture, are actually funneling people into prison. So I think we need to address that. We need to start focusing in on developing our young people, putting them in a position to succeed. You know, my son did something very interesting. My son is one of the few black men on Wall Street. And what he did a few years ago is he went into Harlem and he took a group, I think, of about 30 young black men and brought them on Wall Street. What was he doing? He was saying, you know, you're in this culture, everything that you see is violence. You are promoted if you kill somebody. You are promoted if you sell drugs. If we want to change the narrative, here is a vision of where you could be, even though it's a challenge, even it's very difficult. But what's happening now is that there are opportunities being opened up in places like Wall Street. So companies are now mandated to hire black young men and black young women. The question is, will there be enough black young men and women who are going to college, who are being prepared for what's ahead? So if you want to change the prison culture, you can't just blame the system, even though the system should be blamed. You have to make sure that you don't contribute to it. When we look at a lot of the black culture, you know, there are a lot of gang stuff that's being perpetrated on all levels. And if you want to be hired, if you want to be promoted, if you want to get a position, if you want to go somewhere in life, and the image that a lot of people are seeing of black people is people with their pants hanging down, you know, tattoos on their face and all that kind of stuff. We have to tell our young people, if you want to be better, you have to do better. If you want to be better, you have to look better. You have to strive for the image of God and not the image of DOG. And that's what we are doing today. We are descending to the DOG image when we should be ascending to the God image. And with that, I have to leave. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share. God bless.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dave, for that adding and that contribution. We know that your time is so precious. Thank you for giving us the tools and how we could reach out to the black people in the hood, or as we call it. I'm kind of trying to get used to the American language here in the hood. Thank you very much. So, and on that note, I would like Dr. David Benz to add something before we continue with another. I think we have another quote.
Thank you, Lady Veronique. One of the things that I see here in my city is, and around, I really think it goes back to his identity. That is one thing that we see back in Genesis when Adam left the presence of God. He lost his identity. And I see that all the way up with people, since we're talking about African-American males. I truly believe that is something that they have struggled with. If you don't know your identity, you are susceptible to conform to what people think of you. So there's a little strategy that I did. I was invited to come. There was a program of helping former gang members to kind of infiltrate back in society. So they've asked me to come to do some training with them. So here I am in the room with about 10 former gang members. And I developed a strategy. And the question that I asked them, I said, man, I'm going to ask you a question. And here's the question. If you were a king, how would you conduct yourself? They kind of looked around. One guy said, Dr. Banks, I don't even know how to answer that. And I said, well, just think about it. Just think, if you were a king, how would you conduct yourself? So they start thinking about it. And then one former gang member raised his hand and he said, all right, I'll try. He said, if I were a king, I would treat everybody with the highest respect. I said, okay, great. Who else? And another person said, if I was a king, I would make sure, since I'm a king, I'll have a kingdom and I'll make sure everybody in my kingdom is taken care of. And I'm seeing that now they're getting it. So I said, all right, kings, how would you handle education? And they said, well, Dr. Banks, if I was a king, everybody in my kingdom will truly be educated. And then I really hit them when I said, all right, men, kings, the ladies in your kingdom. And they said this. Now, remember who I said, who I'm dealing with. They were former gang members. And they said, Dr. Banks, if I was a king, I would treat every woman with the highest respect. And I'm thinking, what is this? And I said, men, where are you getting these answers from? How are you getting these answers? You would treat everybody with respect. You would treat women with dignity. You would make sure children would be properly educated. You would make sure neighborhoods are safe. And they said, well, Dr. Banks, if I was a king, I would do all of that. And I looked at him and I said, man, you know why you were able to give me those answers? Is because that's how you were designed. And they just looked at each other in amazement. And I say, isn't it interesting when you thought if you were a king, look how you would treat people with respect, with kindness. But here you are thinking that you are a gang member and you're doing everything opposite of what you were originally designed to be. And that started all of them thinking. And that was a great opportunity, ambassadors and Lady Veronique. So I went on with it and I said, all the way back. Now, definitely they don't know Genesis. They don't know the cross. They don't know about, they don't know all of these terminologies that we use. So I kind of entered into their world. And I remember at the beginning of the class, at the front of the class, I took a chair and I asked one of the gang members to come and sit in the chair. And I said, the very beginning, there was a position in the earth where you were designed to function like a king. And I said, that's what your assignment was, to function like a king in the earth. But I said, one day you decided to get up. So I asked the guy to get up and go sit. And I said, you left this seat vacant. And I said, that's where we are today. You have left your position. And my friend, this was the simplest altar call I have ever had in my entire life. We wasn't at church. I didn't just preach a sermon. We were in a building and I was doing a leadership training. And I just simply asked, how many of you want to get back in position? My friend, they didn't say, well, I have to pray about it, or I have to think about it, or no, I don't go to church and think. Every single hand went up, all 10 of them. And I said, now, the only way you can get back in this position, you got to address the person that allowed you to get back in this position. And guess what his name is? His name is Jesus. He was the one that allowed you to get back in position. And I said, my friend, we're not going to get religious. You don't need to close your eyes. You don't need to bow your head. You just need to ask him. I realized that I got out of position and I need you to allow me to get back in position. So that's what we did. We just talked it out. We didn't get all ceremonial, bow your head, close your eyes. We just said, Jesus, we understand that you are the one that allow us to get back in this position. And we're just simply asking for us to get back in that position. And my friend, and I love this one, Lady Veronique, There was one gang member, when he first walked into the class, his pants were sagging. So I didn't say nothing because I know the strategy. So his pants were sagging. So as we went through this process and we did this little asking requests to Jesus to allow him to get back in his position, as soon as we did that, we didn't say amen. We just said it. And immediately he stood up and pulled up his pants. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Now, since I know that I'm a king, kings do not sag." So my friend, he immediately pulled up his pants and he said, "I'm a king now, and kings don't sag." So my friend, there are strategies that we can do to infiltrate. And that program led Veronique, lasted over 5 years. Over 200 former gang members went through that program, and every single one of them entered into the kingdom, and they understood kingdom principles, and they understood their identity as kings.
Wow, beautiful. Wow, that deserved a boom, I'll tell you. My goodness. Thank you very much, Dr. David Benz, for giving us strategy as to how we could redefine culture. And I love what you said. Many are suffering because of loss of identity. They do not know. Actually, when I say many, it's actually our world today is suffering because of lack of identity. Because we lost our identity, therefore the world is in chaos and we do not know who we are. If we just understand who we are, everything will be perfect. And we need strategic people like you to be able to, in the church they will say minister, to be able to strategically infiltrate the world and change it, because this is what the king asks us to do. Wow, beautiful. Before I give the floor to Dr. Bongen and to Dr. Stacy, I would like to have this quote of Dr. David Fakunle. I think that is an African, Fakunle. If you could put that one, please, that quote, and then we will read it. The moderator, please, thank you. The quote of Dr. David, thank you. Dr. David Fakunle said, "For any non-white person to survive in a society that is dominated by white people, white system and white power, they must learn to operate within that system until they can dismantle it." And that goes actually perfectly with what Dr. David Ben just shared now, that we need to bring back the identity so that people will understand, because many Black or African American, because they don't know their value, they don't know their identity, they gave way to so-called quote and Caucasian to try to be people of power. What would you say, Dr. Bongen? Does this speak term of representation in media? How can you elaborate on that one? And Dr. Stacy will chime in on that after. Thank you. Dr. Bongen, your mic may be...
It's an amazing experiment that you did, Dr. Banks, to give this people the mindset of kings and to see how their attitude changes as a result. So what that means is that as societies, especially societies of people of color all over the world, not only in the United States, it is a question of deliberately reframing the mindsets. In other words, looking at systems for educating people to say, where did we fail, or where are we failing, and what can be done about it? How do we recast the way we do things? First of all, we have to look at the institutions that are responsible for who we become. The family as one of the key institutions, the schools, and I'll jump to the media, which is very critical. So in order for us to begin to, for our children especially, as they grow up to be thinking and behaving like kings, the family, the schools, the media must play a key role, but this must not be accidental roles, must be very deliberate.
Wow. You finish, Dr. Bonget?
Yeah, yes, we could talk some more. You wanted me to talk about representation?
Yeah, please. I love that. As you were saying, the family, the school, and the media are three keys. Wow, Dr. Stacy, you could chime in on that. Maybe with Dr. Bonga will come back again to that, because I love what he began to say. Because usually we have a tendency of say, okay, school will educate our children, but the institution are not educating the children the way they were supposed to grow up, the way they were supposed to know that they are king and queen. So, Dr. Stacy, please.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. I think I'm unmuted. Is that correct?
No, we could hear you.
Okay, great. I think it's very important that we begin to cause a transition of leadership in the Black community from simply having leaders just because they became popular or because they accumulated a certain amount of money. Because we have a lot of leaders now that are leading the majority of the Black community because they made a song, because they have a certain size house, they drive around in certain cars, they have reached a level of financial heights that people aspire to reach financially, but they don't have character, they don't have integrity, they don't have strong marriages, they don't have strong families. I believe it's important that we begin to start celebrating and promoting within the Black community those who actually produce a lifestyle of character and integrity. Because when we place them as the leadership, everyone in the community begins to aspire to be like them. But when they're only aspiring to have their money, they find out they get to that position and they have the money, they have the fame, they have the fortune, but they're still empty. We must create opportunities where people of character and integrity, strong family, strong marriage, are elevated and promoted within the Black community, so that as a model and an example. If we're going to change the behavior, if we're going to change the outcome, like the statistics that you mentioned earlier, if we're going to change the outcome, we're going to have to change the behavior. And if we're going to change the behavior, we must change the mindset. As the mind goes, so does the man. And so I heard a statement the other day, and I thought it was very appropriate, probably for this one here, that just because if you put a clown, everybody's fighting, put Black people in this position, give us this opportunity. It's our time now. But if we don't, it's not our time just because of our skin color. It must be our time because of our behavior. Because if you put a clown in a palace, it does not make him a king. It simply makes the palace a circus. If you don't change the behavior, if you don't change the thinking of the clown to think like a king, like Dr. Banks just got those gentlemen to do, so what he did in a practical way is begin to see themselves in an identity of a king, then they began to become open to listening into training of how to operate and function successfully as a king. We must begin to focus on the principles, the character, the integrity, more than we focus on skin color and race and culture and history. I think it's sad that we always want to complain today about what happened 80 years ago, as opposed to maximizing opportunities that we have today. Black people have more opportunities today than we have ever had in our country. We have Black people leading in almost every aspect of the systems. But are we maximizing those opportunities, or are we excusing bad behavior? We must restore fathers in order to restore whole and healthy marriages, whole and healthy families. We cannot change people's lives by guaranteeing them equal outcomes. It's not even a reality. It's not biblical to guarantee everyone the same just because they want to be a part of the success without paying the price. We can guarantee equal opportunity, but we cannot guarantee equal outcome. We must learn to change people's behavior by changing their thinking.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Stacy, for that adding. We must change people's behavior by changing their thinking. We cannot guarantee equal pay, even it's not biblical. And on that note, are we actually today witnessing another form of slavery? Did slavery really end when people said at the end? Because prison labor is a modern day slavery. And as we saw on that clip, we saw that they're making profit. American prison system are making profit. As a matter of fact, I made a check yesterday and I found out that they are private prison and they are public prison. The private prison made 9.3 billion over the 5 years, last 2021. And those are more Black or African American. Why are we still in this? It's a form of modern day slavery. And I love the fact that you all say we have to begin to see the institutions that are training the young people to come up. We need to change the way they do it. We need to change their mindset, change their behavior. And as Dr. Deborah said that sometimes people would not even want to change. So what would you say, Ambassador Blair, before the other one could chime in on that?
Well, what I would say, Ambassador Veronique, is that that's the world. It's expected for the system that we live in of the world is to the system of capitalism to do. This is what capitalists do. They make money. They create opportunities from problems. And you know what? That's what we're supposed to do. That's why in my favorite book says the kingdom suffered violence and the violent take it by force. That's what Dr. Banks talked about helping men to recognize that former gang leaders to recognize that they're kings and helping them to see that they're kingship. And so this is what's happening in the world today. Is a clash of kingdoms. The kingdom clashing is taking its course. And even if you look at what's going on in Orlando, Florida today, where the government, Ron DeSantis is saying, hey, we're going to take Disney World is trying to change the way that the culture is thinking about the family. And you have the LGBTQ, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, all of those different genders and different cultural roles. And the governor of Florida took a step and says, no, it's not going to happen on my watch. But okay, Disney, you can do whatever you like. But guess what? As a state legislator, this is what we're going to do. We're setting the bar at a high place. We're not going to allow you to do it. We're going to make sure you pay where it hurts the most in your pocketbook. And so we have, in the midst of this culture, it's a cultural war going on. This side versus that side. The kingdom of God versus the kingdom of darkness. Light versus magic. And we have to stand our ground. We're called to change this. We're called to do our part. And just like Francis of Assisi said, that we have to preach the gospel at all times, but with few words or without words if possible. And so this is sometimes it's going to get rough where you have to get into the politics of the culture and you see it's all out clash. And then some other times we're going to have to keep praying and do praying and praying and praying. And we know it's to a point where only God himself can come and deliver his people from the kind of things we're facing today, the kind of cultural roads when a Black man can have his son and say, refer to him as his son, an NBA player, a cultural leader say he's a daughter now, and then he's kissing another man. and it's okay. And it's trending all over the globe. This is the kind of culture we're living in. They're promulgating that out there in the world. We have to go out and we have to preach. We have to preach the message of the kingdom. We have to be violent. We have to be aggressive, not in love, not aggressive as in a way that we're confrontational and we're not meaningful and not impactful and not relevant and not in the right platforms in the right place at the right time, but we have to be present. How can the people hear the message of faith unless there's a preacher? How can they have a preacher unless he's sent? And then you know what the scripture says, how beautiful are the feet of them that bring good news. So all of us are called to changes by first changing ourselves. Ambassador Vernick?
Wow. Thank you, Ambassador Blair. Thank you for highlighting what the mayor of Florida is doing. And I like that. I was actually watching that news last night, and I saw exactly how he's implementing and changing the law in the state of Florida, which is very encouraging. I trust that some of the leaders around here in America, especially, will be able to hone or continue doing what he's doing. That is really good. And also we, Kingdom Ambassador, Kingdom Citizen, we should follow suit to what he is doing, because now that he's sitting at the table of decision and he's doing that one, we're supposed to be forced to what he's doing. Dr. Bongen, you were to talk about the representation yearly. So can you please chime in on that one again before we give the floor to David?
Yeah, I think what we should be emphasizing as far as the media is concerned now is to see to what extent we can take advantage of the media landscape that we have, where having this broadcast via network is possible because of the amazing developments in technology. So without maybe investing several millions, you can now be broadcasting around the world. Messages are sent and they go viral over the internet and on social media platforms. But it's a double-edged sword in the sense that some of the messages that are being sent are those that are destructive. So what education that we talked about should do is for people to be able to be more discerning, to be able to know what message is it that I am passing on to my group. Is this a message that is going to reinforce some of the negative things about people? Or is it a message that is going to help people grow so that they can change that mindset? So what you are doing on your network is already one of those things that the media should do, which is to educate. And the more people are listening to you and to all the other channels that are trying to play a role, I think that is what the media will do. So you are having the niche broadcasters like you, and out there you have the traditional broadcasters and the traditional media, but the most dangerous and corrosive are those who are using the internet for negative purposes. And we've seen how destructive that can be. We've seen how that has affected even the politics, because they are able to sway people to vote the way they want. And just one last thing, since it's about politics, it is important to educate. The process of education should also be a process of political education, because if people are not educated politically, they will remain the victims of the political leaders who have their agenda. We talked about the prisons that are making money. How did that come about? That came about because there are political leaders who are affiliated to those companies that are building prisons. But for that to happen, there must have been a lot of people who did not know what was going on, but who voted these people to power, who accepted, and even the Supreme Court would accept, that you can donate as much money as you want to political campaigns. And who are those who can donate? The billionaires who have interest in that in this system. It is a capitalist system, and it is meant to make money for those who have it. But if people are not educated, they will continue to vote against their own interest.
Wow. Wow. If people are not educated, they are going to be voting against their own interests. Ignorance. Thank you very much, Dr. Bongen, for that adding. We need to train people not only to try to be pastors or whatever, but we need to train them to go into the politics and to sit at the table and to understand what is really going on. If people are not educated, they will be voting against their own interests. Wow. And I remember what you said, Dr. Bongen, that we Black people, we make like 5-10 steps ahead and we make 5 other steps back. It looked like we never go further, we never go back, and we're just in the middle. What is happening? How can we change that? How can we redefine that? Dr. Benz.
Asked about, is slavery still around? So I'm going to deal with that as well as what you're asking now. I truly believe that slavery is still very much alive and well. And I think the biggest thing is we need to properly educate people. We think that slavery is more from a legal standpoint. And, you know, they signed the independence, allowing us to be free. But when we go back and understand the children of Israel, when Joseph and his family came into Egypt, they went in there as God's chosen people. They were God's chosen people. But in Egypt, being in Egypt for over 400 years, they went in as God's chosen people. But unfortunately, through that time, they were indoctrinated to think like slaves. So we have to understand that slavery is a mindset. Yes, we are free legally from slavery, but the slavery mindset is still alive, very much so. And sadly, religion has not helped. Religion has only perpetrated the slavery mindset, because slavery is the mindset of you are having to have a master put restraints on you. In order to think like a slave, you have to understand you can't have a slave until you have to have a master, and you have to basically allow that master to dictate your life. Now, unfortunately, religion has kept that up. They don't call them masters, they call them pastors. So we still have this slavery mindset. And like I said, religion hasn't helped because when we look at this, I always go back to the Word of God, to our Constitution. That's where I get my reference. In the wilderness, God told Moses, this is what I want you to do. I want you to bring all the people to the mountain because I want to speak to them and I want to put my laws in their heart. Basically, like I did when I was with Adam in Genesis 1 and 2. So Moses brought the people. It said, consecrate yourself. God want to talk to you. So when God spoke, definitely it affected the atmosphere. They became afraid. And look at what the people said. All right. This is in the wilderness. And I still think we still have this religious wilderness mindset. The people said in the wilderness, woo, when God speaks to us, it's thundering lightning, we may die. So this is what we want. We want you, Moses, to hear from God, and you tell us what he said. Now, that was not God's original plan. God's original plan was, I want to do what I did with Adam. Adam didn't have a pastor. He didn't have a prophet or apostle. It was between him and God. And my friend, I think we are in a situation now where we're still having that mindset the majority of people saying, no, I don't want to hear from God. I want my pastor. I want my apostle. I want my evangelist. I want my teacher to tell me. And my friend, we know Ephesians 4:11 and 12. We know that God gave the fivefold ministry. But my friend, when we look from the original beginning, God has always wanted to have a relationship with his creation and with his children. So the only way we're going to be able to really tear down this mindset of slavery, we have to help people understand things from the beginning, that God has always wanted basically things to be set up. I always tell the people at our embassy is that I am in your life and we're doing this, you're doing this with me, not through me. All right. So it's important. This slavery mindset can be broken, but the only way it's got to be broken, we have to help and educate the body of Christ. First, it's hard for us to go to the world when the body of Christ is not in order itself. So I truly believe we have to get things together and understand who we are and learn things from the beginning. That's why I always love when the disciples asked Jesus how to pray. He said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And when we start having that alignment, I think we'll start really seeing change to start taking place, and we can really start bringing order back where it needs to be.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much, Ambassador David Benz. And very much is in need that we first have to educate the body of Christ before we try to go out to try to infiltrate the other world. Because if we are not ourselves changed, we could not change order. If our mindset is still in slavery mentality, we could not infect or affect influence in this world. So as we winding down and try to wrap up this great topic today, the Out of the Slab Redefining Culture, I would like each one of you to please give you your final remarks. And I don't know whether you have something to say before the final remark. As you come in, please say that, and then you give your final remark as we wrap up the show today. Thank you very much. I will start with Dr. Stacy, coming in that order, after Ambassador Blair, Dr. David Benz, and Dr. Ben Bungan. Come into that order. Thank you.
Amen. All right. Again, it's been wonderful, great, enjoying and sharing this platform with these wonderful men of God that you've selected here. You're always very selective concerning who you bring on your broadcast. And so I'm always honored to come on and be with you. But in closing, I think I'd like to conclude with somewhat of the topic of our discussion, which is redefining culture. And I believe we have assumed as a society that we have the authority and the ability to redefine what we did not originally define. We've been given an assignment to reproduce, not to redefine. God produced a man on the earth. He multiplied that man into now 8.2 billion living on the earth, but trillions of people over the years. He created a family between a male and a female. And somehow, God defined marriage. He defined family. And somehow mankind has found that it is their privilege to redefine. When you redo something, you do it again. And man was never given the authority to redefine. Instead of correcting abnormal behavior, we're finding ourselves as a society where we are re-engineering morals and redefining terms. Instead of changing the behavior, we're creating new terms, such as modern now, a common statement, that a term that's used is social construct, in which the dominant groups of the society determine what is normalized. Another term that's now been a new term that's been created, instead of, again, correcting the abnormal behavior, they continue the abnormal behavior and create new terms. Another term that's been recently created is toxic masculinity, which is a devaluation, really, of the strong patriarchal fathers, because the global agenda knows that if they can remove the head, the body will eventually die. If you contaminate the source, everyone that draws from the source will also become contaminated. Another new term I've heard of now is emotional labor. I don't know what in the world is emotional labor, where the stress from being married to men, they're constantly trying to remove and eliminate the father from the family, because they know if they remove the father successfully, which they have greatly done in a large percentage of our society, especially the African American community, if you remove the fathers, you remove the covering, you remove the strength, you remove the affirmation, you remove the stability. You poison the source in which everyone else was born and created to draw from. They created terms like Black Lives Matter, and everybody can agree that Black Lives Matter, but they have redefined what that means, where they want to, and they openly stated, and people support this organization when they openly state they want to remove the patriarchal fathers from the family. They've created now this term called gender equality, social justice, biological reality, whatever that, and that can mean whatever you want to mean, because it's your biological reality. We have a new term called the new normal, the modern family. And then we started with white privilege. Now it's black privilege. It's called, they're intentionally causing great confusion and trying to sound intelligent while they're doing it. So they're trying to redefine culture and make it sound like it's intelligent to shift from traditional to a modern culture of new redefined terms. We must reject this. We must continue to apply the biblical principles and stop trying to redefine what we have no authority to do.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. Thank you very much for that final remark. I really love it, because this is actually what is going on in the world. The people are trying to redefine, but we are here to bring it back as God originated. Thank you very much, Ambassador Stacy, for that final remark. Ambassador Blair, please, if you have to add something before your final remark, go ahead.
Yes, and it's indeed a pleasure, Dr. Stacy LeMay, to connect with you, to have such rich wisdom and leadership. God bless you with what you're doing in North Carolina. Dr. Ben, it's a massive pleasure to have you and share your platform and share this experience. And Dr. Banks, oh, what could I say? Every time you say something, I'm writing notes full of deep revelations and connections that changes your mind. And Ambassador Vernick, it's you, God is using you to help to change the cultures. He's using you in such a pivotal way, making the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. He said he will not rest until the waters covers the earth like the ocean, until his glory covers the nations like the waters covers the sea. So it's a kingdom invasion taking place. You know what happened when the 13 Confederate flags fell in the southern states? They didn't fall back in when slavery was abolished. They fell back in 2015, almost 100 and something years later. Guess what? We have a mandate to pray, to pray, to pray. We are called to pull down principalities, powers, and things that don't exist, things that we can't see. We're supposed to do it. We're supposed to pray. We're supposed to work as if everything depends on us, like Ian Bounds would put it, and pray as if everything depends on God. And so this is not a time for us to slack off of our reins, mighty men and women of God. This is not a time for us to play silent and to be afraid. We're supposed to be bold. He's called us into the culture. He's going to give us creative ideas to go into the world. He says, I've given you everything that pertains to life and godliness. I don't want you to be coming playing it small. This is the God of all comfort. This is God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He says, if you just have a faith of a grain of mustard seed, you can move mountains. So we can't be like saying, but echoing what they're saying out there. We have to say, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. We're called to change this. We're called to speak. We're called to change lives. People that are going to hear our voices, they're going to hear us from the ends of the earth, because this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to the ends of the earth. Then the end will come. And all of you are part of this experience. And so I charge you to go forward with vim, vigor, and vitality. Go forward as if your life depends on it, because it does. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. Ambassador Veronique.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Blair, for that encouragement and for highlighting that we really need to go in and take hold of the kingdom of darkness and change it and bring light. Thank you. It's always a privilege to have you. Dr. David Benz, please.
Again, it's a pleasure, Lady Veronique, and it's truly a pleasure to be on the platform with Dr. David Blair, Dr. Stacy, Dr. Ben. Truly, it's an honor meeting all of you and just really being on this platform with you. But I really want to talk to the ambassadors out there who are listening and truly help you to understand the urgency. I love what Dr. Stacy LeMay said. What happens if you don't know the original? You're going to conform to what's happening now. So therefore, it is so imperative that we understand what the original. I always love to use this analogy, a bank teller. When a bank teller gets a job at the bank and when they're going through training, they spend a lot of time learning what real money looks like, smell like. They look at it, they examine it. Why? Because they want them to be masters of the original. So when they're at the teller and someone comes in to try to slip them a fake, since they know the original so well, they can pick up a fake just like that. Ambassadors, that's what we need to be. We need to be so equipped and an expert of knowing what the culture should look like from the very beginning. Anything that tries to insert itself that doesn't line up, my friend, we should be able to spot it just like that. Since we don't know that, we seem to conform to what society is telling us. Well, it's 2022. So 2022, they think this, and we've just sat back and just accepted. Ambassadors, kingdom ambassadors, we need to stand up like never before and realize, wait a minute. No, this is our jurisdiction. Psalms 115 verse 16 says, the heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth he's given to the sons of men. This is our jurisdiction. And Matthew 16:19 says, whatever you allow, I allow. Whatever you disallow, I'll disallow. So my friend, heaven is looking at us. It's looking at us. Whatever you allow and sit back, then I'm going to allow. And we have to stand up and say, no, this is not how the culture needs to be. God set this up from the very beginning. And since we know it well, we disallow this type of lifestyle, alternative lifestyle. We disallow that. And my friend, it's time for us to really come together as one and understand it's not our agenda, it's heaven's agenda. And we are here being representative. We are diplomats in the earth representing another country. And it's important for us to stand like never before to really reclaim what God has set forth from the very beginning. So I want to encourage you. It's going to take all of us. This is not a spectator situation. This is not, well, we'll just let the fivefold ministry take care of it. No, everybody plays a part in making this happen. I love the scripture. Mr. Blair said in Matthew 24, verse 14, when the gospel of the kingdom is proclaimed in all the world as a witness to all nations, then will the end will come. My friend, we are here to truly reintroduce God's kingdom into the earth. And it's important that we learn how to do it and we understand. And just like Jesus said, you have to be about your Father's business. So I encourage you, my friend, Let's make sure that we are understanding and not trying to continue to just do what we've done in the past, but understand there are new strategies being innovated to make this happen. Thank you, Lady Veronique.
Thank you very much, Ambassador David Benz. Wow, I love that. I love that we are not here to conform, but to represent. And we have to work as one, trying to reintroduce the kingdom of heaven into this world. It will not happen into our watch or on our watch. What the world is trying to redefine the culture, we are going to reintroduce the kingdom of heaven on the earth. And God is counting in all of us as ambassador. We will represent. Thank you very much for that ending note. Final remark, Dr. Bongan.
Sometimes in life, we are reminded in a very fierce way of our responsibilities. And as horribly shameful as Mr. Smith slapping his brother, Chris Rock, as shameful as that was, it has given us an opportunity to begin to talk about the things that matter the most. And what matters the most, as we have said today, is our responsibilities. Each of us, and those probably listening to us and beyond, is that each of us has to know that we have to contribute to changing the dynamic. One of the things that we take directly from that is, how do we teach ourselves and those we are blessed to touch how to create habits that teach us how to hold our emotions in check? Some of the tragic things in life have happened because people could not handle their emotions. Will Smith and Chris Rock, theirs was magnified because they were on a global stage. But how many of these tragedies are happening every single day in households that do not have the Hollywood limelight? So it is important that as we educate the young especially, and ourselves, that we do not lose sight that we are human with a capacity to do horrible things, and we should constantly be praying and hoping that we learn to master ourselves by mastering our emotions.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Bongan, for that final remarks. Master our emotion, and we need to take responsibility. And I remember the word of my mentor, the late Dr. Miles Monroe, even in his book, The Burden of Freedom, where he said, people like to be in slavery, but with freedom, demand responsibility. We are free, but now we need to take responsibility. And that is what Dr. Bongan just said now. We need to take responsibility and know how to master our emotion. And I like the fact that you highlighted that because of what have happened with Rocks and Will Smith, now we could talk about it. So this is how God works. And on that note, I will just end this by saying this is how God works. Sometimes he may be boiling in the dark, but it just needs some people to bring us into the light so that we could seize the moment, just as the world are seizing the moment to try to invade with negative. We need to seize the moment now and try to turn the negative into the positive. And this is what we're going to be doing. Thank you very much for your contribution today. And I know that this is not going to be an end, because this is just the beginning. We need to talk about it and making sure that many people are aware of what is happening in the woods, are aware of what is happening outside of Hollywood, every places where, as you say, that there's no highlight in it. So by more we share, by more we talk about it, the culture of the kingdom will be fully manifested on the earth, and the world will not redefine our culture, not in our watch. Before I give a final remark or say bye-bye to all of you, I would like Ambassador Blair to blow us the shofar. Thank you very much.
I'm going to blow 8 short blasts into your homes, into your ministries, into your real estate, into the calling that's on your life. And I know God is going to disrupt whatever thing that's going on that's not of him and do a new thing in your lives. Ambassador Veronique.
Amen. Thank you very much for the privilege of your time. Thank you, Ambassador Bongen. Thank you, Ambassador Stacy Leme. Thank you, Ambassador Dave Boros. Thank you, Ambassador David Benz. Thank you, Ambassador Blair, for the privilege of your time. And thank you who are watching today and you who's going to watch after when we're even off live, for letting us into your home and for taking knowledge and taking keynotes of everything that have been discussed today on this boiling point, the out of the slab, redefining culture. We know that they are trying to redefine culture, but we will not accept it. So it's up to you and up to us, as you hear it perfectly today, to play your role. Be a strategic and be a someone who would like to change the culture of this world with the culture of the kingdom. It has been my privilege to host this talk show today, but before I let you go, please be the media evangelist, as we officially said. Share this broadcast with many of your entourage. We know that we are actually now going out even into 7 continents, but we will allow you still to tag your friend and share and share and share, because people perish because of lack of knowledge. Follow us on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on our Instagram, on Rumble, on Podbean. If you don't want to sit down and watch the video, you could still listen as you go on Postcard. We have it on Rumble and BitChute. We are almost in the 7 on 7 platform right now. So thank you. And can you please, moderator, bring us together so that we wave the royal salute, Kingdom Ambassador representing the King. Until I see you again, be that eager, sow it hard, and keep the vision, keep the faith, and make sure you make God proud, because he's proud of you. Thank you.